Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that we hope will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid, and here's my co-host, Dave Burstein. Hey, Dave.
Hello.
Today we have an extremely special guest, Ms. Jennifer Gutierrez, who's an organizer and activist and is currently serving as a council member for the 34th District in the New York City Council, representing the neighborhoods of Williamsburg and Bushwick in Brooklyn and Ridgewood in Queens. Councilmember Gutierrez has been deeply entrenched in the issues and struggles of the family she represents, including working to institute community-based solutions, institute legislative and budget transparency at the council, and strengthening our communities for all. She is also chair of the City Council Committee on Technology. Councilmember Gutierrez, welcome to Community and Technology.
Thank you so much for having me. What a delight to be here with both of you.
Okay, we're going to start off talking, I guess, a little bit about AI. I know you've held some hearings, and my co-host Dave Burstein is a bit of an expert on AI, having done a lot of research, and we've been talking about it for about a good 6 months on the show. So I'm going to hand it over to him. Dave, you got the floor.
Welcome. Yes, I didn't know the council member. I now know what she's been doing, and I'm very impressed.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm going to be coming in later with news of what's actually the most exciting week, possibly in the history of artificial intelligence, where some very big things happen. The one that's going to affect everybody is that major AIs, this actually comes on ChatGPT, can now not merely read what you're doing and draw pictures, but listen, see, and talk to you remarkably well. And it looks like there's also a big breakthrough in robotics. But why I've got the council member, I wanted to ask her what's been coming up in her work on the council, because you had a hearing not long ago, which is why we invited you. Tell us what you learned there that's going to surprise people.
Thank you. Well, let me try to make this entertaining as far as like what to surprise people with. The technology committee traditionally really at the council focused on, a handful of things, all necessary, things like monitoring and enforcement of 311 and, understanding how the city's main agency do it at the time. Now it's OTI, worked with other agencies to ensure security and safety for city agencies. So that was traditionally what the committee really focused on. Since I became the chair, we're doing all of that, yes, because it's necessary, but we're also pushing the envelope a little bit just in response to the realities of our city, and a lot in response to our mayor, who has been very vocal about wanting to, utilize crypto potentially a lot more in blockchain. So the council, held, he has since tabled. I will give you that reassurance. There's nothing moving forward there. But since I became chair, we've hosted a number of hearings around the city's rollout of the Mpox vaccine. And how, what are some lessons learned that we could have taken from the COVID vaccine rollout. We've also held the council's first hearing on crypto and blockchain technology to really dig into whether or not there is a future for these technologies in government and what we could be doing to regulate better at the city and state level. A couple weeks ago, we did have a hearing jointly with the Education Committee on AI in our schools. And, unfortunately, we didn't have OTI there. Sorry.
No, let me break in here a moment.
Sure.
And we'll come back to the education. Blockchain is a very legitimate tool in programming. It's not going to change the world, but it's real. Crypto is something that I can't discuss politely here on the air. So I'll hold it. It's disappointing.
Dave is not a fan of crypto at all.
Yeah. No, I got it. I mean, there's a lot. We did spend the majority of that hearing on the potential for blockchain technology in in government, right? It was very limited, to be honest, but there was a little bit of feedback from OTI on kind of some of the things that could be feasible, but they're not where they need to be as far as like having, a full-fledged announcement. But they were looking at blockchain technology. They were using some sample cases of other cities that are using blockchain for, the storage of important documents, birth certificates, for example, with the Department of Health, being able to prevent theft, just kind of looking at those ways and looking at other cities as test cases. But we were really thrilled to have the hearing. It was the first time we did it. It was really important to have the city on record talk about the realities of crypto, for example, talk about what is the future for blockchain technology, how are we integrating this responsibly. Something that I've also been trying to push this administration on is to be, light years more transparent on surveillance technology and how they're marrying the two with respect to public safety. So I don't know if any of that is surprising, but I will say that it has been really rewarding because these were not conversations the council was having just 2 years ago, but we're having it now. And so it's really, I think, a step in the right direction as far as even elevating these conversations and making sure that at the center, we are talking about transparency and accountability.
And let me come in there, translating some of that to the people who aren't into the technology. Blockchain is a mathematical technique, and it's behind all the cryptography, not cryptography, the cryptocurrency and so on, which is a whole nother subject. What blockchain essentially lets you do is keep track of things, whether it be cryptocurrency or the contributions of people in the neighborhood to the electric power generation mesh, and do it all without needing a big central server and database and central control. So that's a tool that's being used in many places. It's gotten more publicity possibly than it deserves, but that's pretty true too, according to the AI. But let's go back. You said at the hearing where you talked about schools and AI, you said something that really surprised me about how important it was in the first, second, and third grade. Tell us what you were thinking.
I guess, can you expand a little bit on that? That my comments were about AI being really important in. Oh, I remember. No, what I meant was we had a number of advocates come testify on the value of AI and the value of investing in awareness around this technology and how to utilize this tool for teachers and students. But with respect to the composition of who has these jobs in the tech industry. So it was with respect to making sure that when we were approaching AI in our schools, when we were approaching, tech education and these tools, that we were also doing our due diligence and making sure that there was equity in the implementation and training so that we could inspire young people to really, especially Black and brown kids in our public school system, to feel like this is a real career pathway, like tech overall, but that since New York City Public Schools is already using AI, to really ensure that we were doing it the right way, that we were implementing it the right way, that teachers felt supported, that families at home felt supported so their children could utilize this technology at home. But more so, I believe my comment was about ensuring that if we were doing this right, that like Black and brown kids could feel inspired at an earlier age of tech being a career path for them, because the numbers are so disproportionate. I think that is does that sound familiar?
You know what you said. I know what a reporter said you said. And as a working reporter, I know they don't always get it quite right. But that is actually a fascinating idea because you now can use the AI, ChatGPT and the equivalents, to be a one-on-one tutor for a second grader learning French, for example, or mathematics. It can take anything written. Well, I throw everything I write through a major AI, and it catches mistakes. and it finds things and it makes good suggestions, and that's useful to people from the second grade on. In fact, the biggest use of AI right now, or ChatGPT, may be writing high school and college term papers.
Right.
We know that because the volume of requests on ChatGPT actually went down in the summer, possibly because students weren't in school. There's lots more happening, but it is a fabulous, fabulous tool. Now, what specifically should we be doing here in New York besides connecting this remarkable community of AI people, which includes some of the best in the world, with what's going on in the city? That's a question. What should we be doing?
To connect more and more New Yorkers with like this conversation and like how they can get plugged in.
Whatever you think is most important.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's
15 minutes later in the show.
Thank you. No, I'll be brief about that. But I think that there is a lot, and you read Stu read my bio at the beginning. I don't come from technology. I'm an organizer, so I think a lot of what I bring to the table is like the person's perspective of someone that's like hearing about this stuff but doesn't really understand how it makes sense to them or how it works in their communities. And chairing this committee has really opened my eyes to how useful, if we're doing this, if we're talking to the experts, if we're being really earnest about what our equity goals are, we can get to a place where technology is a super useful tool. You highlighted like blockchain could be really great. And so I think some of the ways they can get plugged in is certainly if they can come to our hearings or testify at our hearings. We want to hear from folks, get involved with some really good advocates. Stu is one of them, but we also have some other folks citywide that really care about not just technology, but connectivity, digital literacy. And so there is a lot to be said about this industry that is new and is really exciting, but that we're not having equally robust conversations about every piece of this industry. And I hope that we can. So I would encourage people to definitely like check out the committees, come out to the hearings if they can, but also like have some of these agencies on your Google Alerts if you're really serious about this, like OTI, have them on your Google Alerts so you know what they're doing. We're going to have a joint hearing with the Public Safety Committee next week on the 11th about the Post Act. And so surveillance is going to be the key piece of that conversation. So folks can just watch it. They can do it virtually. They can testify virtually. But yeah, I think those are some of the things that I would suggest that folks can do just so that they can get involved.
Jennifer, I just wanted to chime in for a minute, Dave. You mentioned equity goals around technology and I guess technology education. Have you codified that at all? Is there anything specific that you can talk about that the city council or your office has in terms of technology and equity goals that you'd like to see happen in the city?
Right. Thank you for that. So I think that's a good question, and a distinction to make is that the council has not made that distinction. It is something that we are working on policy-wise so that we can codify it. And like we understand equity, especially if you're living or representing a community that is, marginalized to some extent. You understand that equity just doesn't exist, doesn't serve you. And that's my job, is I want to make sure that we are talking the talk and walking the walk. And so I do think that OTI as an agency has shared some of these equity goals. I don't know, we're year 2.5 of this administration. I don't know where they're at. I know the controversial Big Apple Connect initiative.
Let me stop you right there. And did you really just say that you as a council member doesn't know where this important part of government is at?
What do you mean about equity in tech?
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that. I said the council has not codified a specific like legislation on equity in tech yet, because we haven't passed legislation. It is something that we do have a couple of those bills that we're working on. but we haven't passed it yet, is what I said. So yeah, our job is to hold OTI accountable to some of those equity goals, which right now is specifically just around broadband access. So we have a lot more, we have so much more work to do. One of the hearings that we had earlier this year around Big Apple Connect was about digital literacy, and how for us, and like Stu knows this so well, where connectivity and digital literacy have to go hand in hand, especially in some of these communities, and that's not what's happening. So we are really holding their feet to the flame here, because it's vital. It's absolutely necessary. So, we have a lot more work to do as far as defining equity goals. Obviously, the Internet Master Plan, I think, did a really good job at setting that tone, but this administration has reversed, has tabled the Internet Master Plan, and I think are taking it apart piece by piece. But I'm not here to justify this administration. I'm here to lead the council on some of these things. So we are looking to fill those holes, because there is a lot more to be done in that area.
Yeah, and you've heard, Dave. I just wanted to just comment on just briefly, because a council member mentioned the Internet Master Plan, which we thought was a really robust and equitable way to bring in new providers, Black and brown folks, small businesses, to help bridge the digital divide, proposed under the previous administration of the previous administration before Adams came in, de Blasio. And the new administration basically tabled that whole initiative. I think, Jennifer, I was at a hearing with you where the OTI said they hadn't even looked at the details of the Internet Master Plan, which I thought was really kind of shameful. We continue to hope that some of the initiatives that the previous administration had proposed under the Internet Master Plan, that you guys continue to advocate for them, because I think they're important. I'm not sure what you've heard, Jennifer, about the Big Apple Connect program, but to me, and what I've seen and heard from residents on the ground is that, it really lacks bringing any kind of real economic benefit to the residents. It doesn't train the residents. It doesn't bring economic value to the residents. It doesn't involve them in the solution as did much of the programs, in particular the ones that, I'm being a little self-serving here, but our group, the Smart Community Initiative, had proposed a program where the residents themselves were involved in the installation and the operation of the services that would be provided. And all that stuff is kind of like thrown out under the Big Apple Connect program, which in my mind is just very paternalistic, just kind of throwing internet access at the people and kind of walking away from any further responsibility. But that's me and my soapbox. I'm sorry.
Let me explain the soapbox. It's time for me to step aside, because nobody has done more about this in New York City than Stu, and I've been watching him do it for almost 25 years. So let me hand over to Stu, and I'll come back with some of the AI news afterwards.
Yeah, I think Stu did summarize that really, really well. And Stu, that's why immediately when we at that hearing had heard from the administration saying, they were not. Actually, we heard from them across two hearings about the Internet Master Plan, and in both hearings that were spaced out a few months apart, there was no serious point-by-point summary to prove why the Internet Master Plan needed to get shelved to begin with, right? The first time they said it, they said there were a lot of problems. It wasn't efficient. It wasn't moving fast enough. And then the second hearing that they came to, they didn't have any of that analysis that I was hoping they would have. So some of the things that we're doing is trying to legislate some of these pieces of the Internet Master Plan that really center equity, that really center community empowerment. And so, I'm really excited about that, because hopefully we'll get to intro something very soon. But, we agree. We think that there was a lot of really positive points of the Internet Master Plan, and we want to make sure that any administration moving forward just doesn't have the ability to say, like, no, I don't like this anymore. It's kind of like, shell the expertise and hard work of people that have been doing this work like yourself for decades. And that piece about Black and brown internet providers is key. I mean, still with the Internet Master Plan, I think we've passed about a year since the announcement was made on Big Apple Connect, and we were told that they were going to work with other providers, including, Verizon, which they're not a provider right now. It's just Altice and Spectrum, and that they were going to, work with these MWBE providers that had applied, and that's just not been the case. And so, we want to make sure that we are codifying a lot of this stuff so that we don't run into this in another administration.
Okay, well, you have our support, Jennifer, and myself, my partner Doug Frazier, and our whole resident community team. We're ready, willing, and able to advise and actually to perform on many of these areas whenever we can. So please keep us posted with your advocacy for that.
Thank you. Can I just say one last thing on the AI piece? I don't remember if I got to finish it, but some of the feedback that we heard from Borough President Levine and some other advocates was how some of this AI technology with respect to schools has been really powerful in helping to identify problems that they've experienced in the past. I believe there was an example in the New York Times about John Jay and being able to increase graduation rates. And we've heard this from other schools. And so those are some, we definitely need a part 2 to this hearing, because DOE, I do not believe came like fully prepared to speak on some of the data breaches and some of the ways that they're going to be able to expand generative AI to benefit children. But I walked away from that hearing feeling like there is there is support for this in our schools, and we just hope and always hope that they're going to be able to center safety. And they don't have a strong track record just yet. So I think it feels like it's very positive. I do think we're moving a little slowly in that area, but I felt really encouraged that they're taking it seriously, and I look forward to a second part of that hearing.
Great. We're kind of I know you're a little pressed for time, Council Member. I'm wondering whether or not there are any other issues on your plate, particularly on the Committee on Technology, that you're looking at that you'd like to share with our audience.
I think we are going to work on, like I said, we have this hearing next week on the 11th on the Post Act. It's a joint hearing with the Public Safety Committee.
Well, what's the Post Act? Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just briefly tell us what that is?
Sure. I think there's a whole acronym for it, but the Post Act is a way of basically allowing surveillance to trump, I guess, security and privacy in the name of public safety. And so particularly we're going to spend some time on the city's investment in RoboCop and some of these drones for safety. And so we're going to dig in a little deep and to see what communities these are targeting, how this is really going to improve public safety in our communities. And again, we're just going to demand, so PD will be there and demand more transparency from them, and a ton of questions that we'll have for them regarding how they operate these tools along with other technology to surveil New Yorkers.
Okay, Dave, you have any final questions for the council member before she goes?
25 years ago, I interviewed John Sculley, who at that point was the president of Apple. And John said that all the things he was talking about is how education would be transformed as the computers got into the schools. And everything would change. And he spoke as though most of the problems would be solved. The same thing I'm hearing now about what's AI. But let me be really clear. The potential for doing great things is there, but it's not guaranteed. And frankly, 25 years after John Sculley said computers were going to change how we learned and we would learn much more effectively, I haven't seen the schools being that much better than they were 25 years ago because we have got the computers there now. So it has to be done well and thoughtfully, and we got to not believe the hype.
Amen. I think that's great. I think that's true.
Okay, council member, any closing words for our audience before you go?
No, I just want to thank you all for this opportunity, and thank you for empowering our communities to understand, what is happening, and how fast technology is moving. And I just thank y'all for your years and years of advocacy, to make sure that our communities know what's going on and how we can connect where it makes sense, and keep out what doesn't make sense, what hurts our communities instead.
Okay, well, thank you. We've been talking with Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez from District 34 in New York City. Thank you so much, Councilmember. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Be well. It's nice meeting you,
Okay.
Dave. See you soon, Stu.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this is Community and Technology. We're going to take a break for a brief musical interlude and be right back with some more latest AI news. Stay tuned. WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
How many African children, oh willy boy, are living in a concrete situation? Oh willy down there, oh willy boy. African children are living in a concrete situation. African children, I wonder if they know where you're coming from now. African children in a concrete situation. African children, they don't know where you're coming from. All of the nation was living in these tenements, crying and applying to their council for assistance. Every day now, the tribulation is so sad. Their environment so bad. High-rise concrete, no backyard for the children to play. African children are down there in a concrete situation. African children, they don't know where you're coming from. No, African children down the in a concrete situation. African children, all the people living in these tenements, a pre-cast stone walled concrete cubicle now. Their rent increasing every other day. Structural repairs they're assessed and yet not done. Lives out of action on the 27th floor, and when it work, it smell African children. Many African children, oh willy boy, are living in a concrete situation. Oh willy boy, African children, them living in a concrete situation. African children, they don't know where we're coming from. African children, down dilly day in a concrete situation. African children, where you're coming from. Right. Make I hear you say yeah. Right in this time, I and I as African children, they way over there in Babylon, you know. I and I live in a concrete. Some living in the high rise, some living in the low rise. And when it rains, the children can't go out to play. African children, I really want you to bounce with it. See, it's a place where you don't even know your neighbor's name. I said it's a ghetto in the sky. Hi, African children.
Okay, we're back. Community Technology, Dave Burstein and Stu Reid. Dave, you have some news that just came in you wanted to tell us about. What's going on?
Well, Catherine Carrico has just won the Nobel Prize in Medicine. She was crucial in coming up with the ideas of mRNA, which are in the COVID vaccines. Brilliant piece of work. Saved literally millions of lives by getting the vaccines out faster than anybody had ever done a vaccine before in history. And she is a woman who barely could keep a job for 25 years in science.
Wow. Is she American, Dave? Where's she from?
She's an immigrant, and that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. She's an immigrant, a woman, somebody who didn't know how to play the games and didn't have an American PhD. So she was getting research assistant jobs, even while she was doing work that literally wound up winning the Nobel Prize. Some of that is her stuff was out of fashion. Nobody was interested in mRNA in those days because they thought it was going to be impractical to work with. And that's what she and her colleague, Dr. Weissman, managed to solve, finding ways to make it practical to use it. So let's pull a couple of lessons out of this. The first I want to call is the cost of discrimination. If a woman not from the United States is held back from what she can do in science, well, we might not have had the vaccines that literally saved millions of lives and won the Nobel Prize. That's true in any form of discrimination. The economics of this was done by Gary Becker years ago, looking at racial discrimination. If you eliminated Black people from consideration, you lost some of the best candidates. We're seeing it now in a very bad decision being made by the US government to make it almost impractical for Chinese researchers to come to the United States and study in things like artificial intelligence and communications engineering. They think that's going to help security. It's not going to make any difference. We're talking about academia, and that stuff is open anyway. But it means that an enormous number of potentially very valuable contributions to American science and engineering are going to be lost. When I look through all the AI stuff, when I look at who at Google or Meta or Stanford or NYU, I see an enormous number of immigrants, probably 20 or 30% of the people writing papers in artificial intelligence, which I'm going to talk about in a moment, have Chinese names. and many of them have degrees from important Chinese universities. Most people like that are being held up at immigration. A friend of mine, a Stanford professor in engineering, was called in by his administration to warn him about what not to say when he gave a speech in China. This is cutting down the progress of science, and in particular in engineering, where there's so few people jumping into it from American educational system.
Dave, what do you think is driving this blockade, if you will? I mean, is it pure fear of security, or is there a racial component as well? What's your opinion?
Well, I think our listeners can make a decision about whether there's a racial component in this. We've all seen that issue a long time. I can tell you in this, there's definitely xenophobia, and there's also paranoia about security that is leading to very, very bad decisions that are, of course, going to cost American science and engineering, the fields I work in. That much of the best work is being done and has been done by people from China and Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia? Really?
I think that's where our Nobel Prize winner came from.
Okay.
She was somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And when we lose these people, we lose a lot of the progress that's being made.
Mm-hmm. Are these government sanctions, Dave, or are they unilateral? Where are the sanctions and the blockages coming from? Is it local? Is it national? Is it regional?
The New York Times today just had an article about why aren't we getting the Chinese graduate students and doctoral candidates in artificial intelligence. There's so many leaving China. And the article made clear that many of them aren't even thinking of applying to the United States because we're not giving visas to many people from China.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or from Ghana, or from the United Emirates and Yemen. And holding back, when we're talking about people for coming to study for their doctorate, they're not going to see secrets that aren't going to be open anyway, because academia is going to publish the stuff pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to hurt, but there is this fantasy that they can keep America more secure by devastating our scientific manpower.
Well, Dave, let me just drill down a little bit. Is this legislative or is it bureaucratic? I mean, is it?
It's both.
It's both. Okay.
Okay. We have a lot of people, and not just rabid right-wingers. I'm talking about Senator Chuck Schumer of the United States, a liberal Democrat, who have been very strong telling the administration, blockade China, hold them back as most you can. It's failing miserably, and I can give you all the specifics on that, but it's coming from xenophobia, American exceptionalism, the sense that somebody born in Chicago or San Jose is going to be more able to do science than somebody born in Shanghai or Chengdu, or Lagos, or Abu Dhabi. And I see this, and I bring into, as I introduced it, this is the cost of discrimination. There is always a cost of discrimination. And in this particular case, with so much of the work being done in China, cutting the United States off is going to hurt us badly in the long run.
Okay. Now,
And
now,
that's
Dave, just to pivot just a little bit, I think you mentioned earlier during the break we were talking that there was some big breakthrough or announcement in AI that just happened over the last day or two. What's that all about?
not one big announcement, about 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest week in the history of AI. And there have been some pretty big weeks, like when ChatGPT got out there and people started understanding what it could do. That's when I jumped into it. I mean, I've been watching it for 25 years, but I spent most of the last 6 months trying to understand it. And I may even actually understand some of it now. It took a lot of work. It's not easy stuff. It's like going back and trying to learn physics. It's not something you pick up in a weekend seminar.
Yeah, and it's not like riding a bicycle either. It doesn't just come back to you. At least not for me. So what are some of the 6 breakthroughs, Dave, that you mentioned?
First thing, you now can talk to your computer and it can talk back to you in intelligent, sensible, decent sounding conversation.
Wow.
Joanna Stern at the Wall Street Journal talked to the new version of ChatGPT, which has both listening and talking capabilities, and had a conversation about the work she was doing and the video she was making. A conversation with the computer. It sounded great. It took a little bit longer. There was a delay of a few seconds a few times, but it's showing what is going to be able to happen. It clearly is going to be possible to, for example, ask your computer, what is the meaning of this finding on my MRI brain image that the doctor sent me? And the computer is going to be able to give you a reasonable answer to that. That's usually going to be right. It's also going to be able to not just read and write, but to see and create illustrations, so that you definitely now can turn around and put in a short video of a dog running, and the computer can figure out not merely that it's a dog running, but how to make another video of, say, an elephant running, based on what they learned, what the computer learned from dogs and horses and elephants. All of this is no longer science fiction. As I say, the Wall Street Journal reporter, Joanna Stern, who's a great reporter, was testing it out.
Mm-hmm.
It also means that since the computers can speak really well, our deep fake's going to be all over the place. And how we solve that, there's no easy answer for.
And deep fake for the our listeners, just tell briefly a deep fake. I think I know what that is. That's where we see something and it's totally generated by a computer. It's not real. Is that right? But it looks like a real person doing what's saying.
Tom Hanks, the actor, just complained yesterday that somebody selling dental plan insurance did not hire him to be their spokesman. They used AI to make it look like he was endorsing it.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's you can put any words you want in the mouth of Donald Trump or Barack Obama. That's now easy. It works incredibly well.
So how are we going to be able to believe what we see, what we hear? I mean, that's crazy, Dave. I saw it on TV. I saw it. I heard it. It's going to throw all that just out the window.
Yes. You cannot believe your eyes anymore. Your eyes and your ears can be fooled so well that Joanna Stern a few months back did this with an AI program that could replicate her voice. And had that AI program handle her end of a conversation with her mother. And her mother didn't realize that it wasn't Joanna talking. That's how good it's got. Now, some wonderful things are coming out of it. We could take this show treat it like a podcast, which is where this is coming from. Spotify's doing it with all the big podcasts, and have it come out immediately translated into French, German, or Swahili, and put out there in our own voice, speaking a language
Really?
that we have no knowledge of.
And our voice with the foreign language, Dave. Is that right?
Yep, Spotify is
Wow.
doing it now, and that's
We got to do that, Dave. We got to do that. Wow.
It can be done. I've listened to lots of it. It works.
Wow.
Okay. Now, these are so the big advance in AI, and there's way more there, is that it now can see, speak, hear, and take what we knew about it from working with text, the ability to mostly understand many things, like what you want to hear from your boyfriend. That's actually a thing. People are paying to have the AI pretend to be their boyfriend and have a conversation.
Oh, get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
People are paying for that, David? As though, oh.
Now,
Wow.
one of the problems there is some of the AI programs don't want to talk about sex and block that. So you have to go to a different AI program that doesn't have that kind of rule. That's there. People are using AI as a therapist. Most people who need therapy can't get it. It's too expensive. It's even more relatively expensive when you go into a poorer district or a poorer country. It is not the same as having a MD, PhD psychiatrist trying to help you. But it can ask you many of the right questions and give you some common sense answers to the point that it's being debated is it a lousy therapist or maybe even a good therapist? And even a lousy therapist may be better than no therapist at all. And all of this stuff is getting better at a rate that's almost unbelievable. Stu, you and I were in the middle of the big internet boom at the turn of the century. That was really exciting stuff. You were in the South Bronx delivering broadband and the internet to people who had never had it before. I was running around on the business side, seeing all these announcements, lots of people getting rich, not me, and wild things happening. This is far beyond that. It probably is going to be much more important. It almost definitely will be world changing. And we don't really know. It also
sounds like, David, it's going to happen a lot quicker. You're talking about maybe a 25-year cycle, early days of the internet to where we are now. And this next cycle is probably going to be what? More like 5 years, or maybe even quicker.
Well, some of the best people in the business, Joshua Begnio at Montreal, for example, he wrote a really touching piece that I read here on the air about how dangerous it might be when the computers get smarter than we are. Will they need to keep us around? That's a whole nother discussion. But what he said in that is he never used to worry about it because it was so far off. But he's seeing the progress being made, and he thinks that something really dramatic is going to happen, certainly within 20 years, and maybe within 5. And a lot of darn smart people like that are looking at it and saying, what we thought was going to happen far in the future seems almost in front of us. The guy from ChatGPT, Sam Altman, may or may not have been joking when he said that they had in their laboratory an artificial general intelligence, a computer that in general is smarter or comparable intelligence to a human. He may have been joking. Other people are not. I don't think it's there now, but some very smart people think it's going to be
Yeah,
there.
clearly that's the trajectory we're on.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it sounds like there's something akin to Moore's law happening in the whole AI
Oh,
development.
no. I've seen the charts. It's much faster than Moore's law. And Moore's law changed the world dramatically. It really does put in the Apple iPhone more power than in a supercomputer 20 years ago.
Yeah, just briefly for folks who may not know, Moore's law, correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, said that computing capacity doubled every year. Was it every year that it doubled?
More like every 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's still happening. It's going a little slower now, but it's still mostly happening.
But the AI cycle is quicker, you're saying?
The AI cycle gets dramatically better every 3 to 6 months. Now, what do I mean by dramatically better? Well, next year, the Apple iPhone is almost definitely going to have an AI model built in. The models are getting more efficient and smaller. The iPhone is getting more power. And all these things I'm talking about, literally, the ability to translate what you're saying on the fly into Chinese is going to be built into all the high-end phones starting next year. That's one of the bits that people haven't put that one together. I may be one of the first to say that, but the engineers are working this.
That's going to be impactful, I would think. I would think that's going to, that's going to have some really results out there in the world. I mean, yeah, I think we've had the translators around for a while where you could talk into a device and it would repeat back in another language.
Yeah, and you can do that now, but this is going to be a natural conversation. It could be as I say, they're doing it.
And in your voice, that's the other real unique thing, crazy. In your voice, not in the computer voice, but in your voice.
Absolutely doable. One of the reasons I've been working on this is a lot of people are getting it wrong. They're doing a lot of analysis about what's going on based on today's cost. I've been seeing policymakers in Washington with power getting things totally wrong because they don't realize that all this stuff is rapidly coming in smaller models, cheaper and faster. The price is going down about 50% right now. And I'm pretty sure it's going to go down another 50% in the next year. So things that are a little bit difficult now or impractical now are going to be practical and important, just as having a computer once upon a time was impractical. And now nearly all of us carry them on the phones in our pocket.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, we got just a couple minutes left here. What are some of our closing things you want to share with our audience before we sign off here?
Well, one, that everybody working on this should understand that hallucinations are really bad. That's a fancy word for the computers making really big errors. I did a summary of a paper this week and sent it to the author saying, do I have this right to publish the summary? And he said at least 4 points had nothing whatsoever to do with what he wrote in his paper. The computer looked at his general topic and pulled some general comments out, but they weren't what he said. The other thing is, it looks like, and literally it just came out this morning, we're about to see breakthroughs in robotics. Robotics are there painting the cars on the assembly line, doing the welding, starting to pick up the packages in the Amazon warehouse, and so on. The Roomba really does a great job vacuuming my floor. I didn't believe it till I saw it.
Oh yeah, you have one of those things, huh?
It goes back and plugs itself in to the charger.
Oh, get out of here. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, those kinds of robots are also being built, and this is something really worth understanding, for weapons.
Mm.
Wars are going to get more and more dangerous with this AI and robotic weapons.
Okay, well, I'd
Okay.
love to talk about that more, Dave, but we're out of time. This has been Community Technology. Dave Burstein and Stu Reid. Great conversation, Dave, about AI, and I also want to just thank again Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez from Brooklyn, Queens, 34th District, for coming on and talking about technology in the city of New York. You've been listening to Community Technology on WHCR 90.3 FM every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Tune in. Just might learn something. Good night.